bring it up here so I do it the right way. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order.
1:33. Okay. All right. Christopher Abel,
Here.
Keith Shaw,
Here.
Carrie Trask.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, and thanks for being flexible to get this in. I know there was an interest in meeting. We're trying to meet in a way that is appropriate and fits within legal guidelines for how we can meet and discuss about this. It was brought to my attention that there are concerns about some of our contractual agreements and the student information that we share out with that, and possible conflicts with state law. So I did let the superintendent know and our director of, is it state and federal programs?
Right.
State and federal programs. I'm trying to get people's titles right. Still working on it. And they have started to look into it. I didn't know if there's anything you wanted to share
Only
on
to the
this.
extent I didn't know specifically enough in terms of what to look into, to see whether or not, to validate something, would be wrong, needing correction, so I could follow up accordingly and report back. So I was, and then when I was talking with Lee, we're kind of speculating that we thought we knew, but we didn't know for sure.
Okay.
I did do a little, probing with the attorney, just to say, something surface, and I was just confirming my own understanding.
Sure.
And he said, without more specifics, you can have confidentiality. Certain people can be partners with you to do certain things. There would typically be a confidential clause, built in, but without kind of specifics, we were kind of talking general, not with anything specific. So I didn't have more to. What I know, for example, is survey data. You have to, you can't just go out doing survey data that's touching certain things without parents maybe knowing that you're going to do that. And sometimes we'll have a county who might want to do a survey, and we really shouldn't do that without first making sure parents are aware that we might want to do that to get their permission. So, so I could draw some parallels, but I didn't know anything
Yeah,
specific.
this kind of borders, this kind of is, we're in the same fruit basket, but not really apples to apples.
Yeah.
But we're in the same thing about sharing.
That's what I was speculating, that's where we're talking about, with not anything more specifically to make sure I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and we don't do something we're not supposed to do.
Sure.
And one of the parts of that is informed consent by
Correct.
parents for what we share. And as they've just begun to look at it, they've discovered there are many of the computerized assessments that we're using that may border or may require that we get appropriate parental consent to share the data. And so that's something that needs to be looked at, and certainly something that, so everybody knows, will also be run by our lawyers to make sure that we're on the right page.
I know in a previous district, we used testing data NWEA, and we were able to do that to meet the legal restrictions because of our confidentiality notice and because they were a business partner in what we were doing to conduct our business. And it was, again, I don't remember all the specifics, but it was, because of challenges.
Right.
So I was drawing parallel, but not knowing for sure.
Like I said, we're in the same fruit basket.
Yeah.
We're not exactly apples to apples and oranges to oranges, but we're in that same
Right.
same area.
And
So if you want me to share with you what I've learned and what I've explored and what I've seen, then I'll be happy to. Carrie, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. This one. So, it was kind of interesting because a person in the community sent me the SFA contract when all these things were going on regarding SFA. So he sent me the contract. I'm not sure how we got the contract, but it was obviously the contract that the entire board has seen at that time and agreed upon when they voted SFA into our district's reading program. But I'm looking at the SFA contract, page 4, student records. It says the foundation shall keep in strict confidence any and all records and information in whatever form or format received pertaining to the school district's individual students, including but not limited to academic or grade information, attendance, truancy, discipline, respect for special education service, social security, and public benefits, or information as to race, ethnicity, or disability. The school district represents and warrants that it is duly authorized to transmit such student records to the foundation for the purpose of the foundation providing services under this contract. The foundation further agrees to abide by the terms of Wisconsin State Statutes 1118.125 and recognizes that to the extent anything in this agreement is inconsistent with that, the terms of the statute which they control. So being an old law major in my specialist work, I read this thing about 4 times and thinking, Jim, who signed this contract, and the board members who agreed to this contract just said that we can share all directory data with SFA. So I went back and looked to see in the beginning of the school year, the notice that comes out of the superintendent's office that is sent to every person in this district, if we define directory data, and if it states that this information is going to be shared with a third-party agent, okay? Wisconsin State Law 118.125 specifically says that a district must identify directory data, has to tell the public what directory data is, and if there's to be shared documents with this district to a third party, must have parent authorization to receive that data. A parent has 14 days to opt out once they receive this notification of receiving directory data by state law. That's in this statute. So we agreed to the statute. The district said, yep, we're going to follow that. But just prior to that, in the article, said that signing this document, which the board and Mr. File did, gives our district the right to collect all this stuff on kids. Okay. So it was really interesting. And I went back and I looked at this memo 2 or 3 times. I collected it. And it says that the parents have right to opt out of important information. That's there. It doesn't say what we define as directory data. It doesn't give them the 14-day timeline. Upon written request, the parent and the guardian of the adult pupil shall make available to the persons named. We have to tell the parent what and who we're sending this information to, which we didn't do. So all of that is in this document to parents, but there's no opting out of information to SFA. I get it, because we didn't have SFA when that went out, okay? So I understand that. But we still, we don't have in here what we defined as a district as directory data, which everybody in this district has a right to know what we are defining as directory data. So then I went and I saw this and I saw that that was not published. And then I asked for what was sent to the parent for the parent to opt out of. And this is the only document from our district out of the office of the superintendent that was sent to every kid. And it was saying that the parents have a right to pull their kid if they don't want their picture on the internet, they don't want their picture on the stores. That's the only opt-out we have. The district has no further opting out of sending any directory data. That form is not included to anything except that internet information. Again, a little stretch of the legalities. So then when the 2 national representatives from SFA were at Washington, I sat down and talked with them for a good 30, 35 minutes. Tremendously wonderful people. I learned a lot about SFA and the entire program. And I had mentioned this paragraph to them. I said, do you guys collect data on our kids? She said, yes. And then she said, but don't worry, we don't share. And I said, I'm not a kid. I don't think you do share. I'm not even questioning that. I'm not worried about that. But do you collect data on our kids? And she said, yes. So she pulled up her screen. She showed me 2 documents that are shared with SFA Foundation. And so I went to our SFA coordinator and I said, do you have these documents that we share with SFA? She said, sure. They collected. The ability of the contract, by this contract, says that they can download all of this information. So here's the two documents, and I'll pass this around. The names are cut off because I believe that in the confidentiality, and the page is folded over so you don't see any student's name. But on this document that is collected is the student's individual name, whether they're in special education or regular education, whether they're Spanish, whether they're non-Spanish, whether they're ELL or whatever. That is sent to SFA along with this document. This document shows the courses they're in, and it shows how the district wants them to succeed in SFA. That's great. But in the upper right-hand corner of this document, you're going to see a student ID number. That student ID number is their email address. Now you have tapped into a whole new source of information that is personally identified because it's the individual kid's email address, which, if ever hacked, we all know what that could be. Now, there's no reason in my mind to think SFA is ever sharing this. I'm not accusing, but I do think it's the district's just and due cause to let the parent know that that's the information that they're collecting, and they have a right to opt their kid out of that, especially with the right that that email address number is identifying on that document. I think we've stepped into a whole new, over a new limb there by that number on there. The name's released, special ed is released, and not knowing special ed law like I used to 10 years ago, we're entering a whole new realm when you start messing with IDEA and release of confidential information. I'm not blaming SFA. I'm not blaming anybody. I think that what we need to do as a district is to assure our parents that when we release information to a third party, they have a right to opt out of that to every nth degree. So that's what I discovered.
I have a clear understanding, even though I was speculating, we're in that somewhere. Which tells me, one is the notification, in terms of how complete is our notification. For example, one of the things we do just as an information is this contract was also reviewed by the attorneys. Okay, so in terms of making sure that things that should be in the contract are and stuff like that. So, but what I'm picking up is just making sure that we are in fact notifying parents the way we need
Correct.
to regarding anything. So
I
it
think
isn't just SFA. I'm thinking about Fastbridge. I'm thinking about all the other assessments. We work with CISAs and information is shared. So they're
Yeah, but see, we
sharing.
contract services with those CISAs. They're part of our thing. SFA really is the third party. They don't sit around this
No,
board.
but the same with Fastbridge. They don't, they're
Right,
not part of either. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's more, that we are, so I
Exactly.
totally agree, to the extent that,
Does Fastbridge collect, they know, they
I
collect
don't
data,
know.
but I don't think they collect names.
yeah, Keith, I don't know.
Yeah.
I really
Yeah.
don't know. And I know sometimes, sometimes you sign an alternative, to match, to try to another layer of confidentiality, so I don't know that, but I know more now about what to follow up on.
See, and I think that what really concerned me the most was the assurity that this board released when they voted this contract in, that an attorney is going to take a look at this and say, yep, this contract's in good form. Now, attorney's not going to say point by point, did you do? The attorney's going to assume that this contract, once approved by the board, and the individuals that saw this contract and approved it, and the superintendent, that this is a very good contract, it's a very tight clause contract, but the assumption is that everything in this contract is abided by.
Yeah.
The attorneys, that's up to us.
Yeah, that we will be
Sure,
providing the
sure.
opt-out.
So here's what I was thinking, and I truly do mean this after talking to some people who realize that we have got to correct this, is that the fourth quarter scores do not get sent to SFA until we get this fixed. So the fourth quarter data, when I talked to our SFA coordinator at Washington, all the coordinators get this information. They all get the same thing as SFA Foundation is downloading. They all get it. Those coordinators could share that same information with the schools. Now, I do think that a letter to SFA from the superintendent saying something to the degree that we've discovered an error. You'll get your information after we notify the parents of a right to release. Maybe that simple. We'll send you the fourth quarter, but we're gonna get the permission. And the parents will say no, then those names and those scores are deleted. Not making a big deal, not making that, we've noticed the error, we've corrected it, and that's how we deal with it. But in the next publications this summer, we define directory data to the max. We say who's gonna get this information, what they're gonna get, and you have a right to opt out 14 days. Because that 14 days is an exclusive. If you don't say the district, I want out, you're included. So it's an exclusivity clause that brings you that. But I do think we need to be prudent, and we need to be justified in the actions and not just send it out and hope that something doesn't happen the fourth quarter, but to correct it. And Mr. File can send the letter to the SFA, say, you'll get your scores, but after we have done due notice to the parents or something to that effect. I can't author the letter, but that's what I was thinking.
Sounds okay to me. It doesn't have a retro correction though.
Pardon me?
It doesn't have a retro correction.
No, it does not.
Yeah, we cannot break an egg.
Yeah, we can't, yeah.
That's just, reality.
Yeah.
And I want you to know that because the little bit I've heard has absolutely said, as you heard from the superintendent, this is not the only agreement that we want to make sure
Correct.
that you couldn't take data from here and data from here, and when you lay them on top of each other, compile data that we're not supposed to be sharing without permission.
And one of the things, just, we've already heard the thing about what assume means, but we don't want to assume anything.
Correct.
That's in
Absolutely.
place.
Absolutely.
And sometimes when you're new to an organization, even the organization's in existence for a long time, every once in a while you need to check to make sure
Correct.
everything you're saying is in fact what you're doing.
And if you,
And with that clarity.
and what we agreed to by 118, 125 on here is that when we send notification, we list FastBridge, testing, ... SFA, the name, the students, the reading scores, whether it's in special ed, whether it's in ELL, this is what will be released. Now, dear parents, if you don't want that, then you got to tell us. But I think we have to come back. So I don't know what I don't want to play a waiting game and think, oh my God, please nothing happen fourth quarter. I don't want that. I think we do not send those scores. We protect what we now have discovered and say a letter to SFA from the superintendent. Here's what we've discovered. Here's
One of the things that there is an urgency here to the extent that data is filled in daily, sometimes the member center, because that's how we're making assessments about where students are at and stuff like that. So, and again, I have to make sure in terms of, the more that there could be disruption to, okay, everything's on hold, kids, you're just stay put. If we have a situation like that, obviously we don't want to do that because we're going to impair the learning of everybody.
well, it's not on hold because our coordinators.
But we're
get all
sending them the
that.
information is what I'm saying. We feed in information to Member Center in terms of where kids, I just want to make sure that I want to follow up with the expediency that we've identified. To make sure nothing, we don't disrupt anything, that in fact parents are informed and, so I just want to make sure I'm thoroughly expedient and that we understand if there's any impact, then we'll just have to deal with that.
Yeah, and I don't see that it would be difficult to inform parents
Right.
now with the fourth quarter coming up.
Correct.
So that we can
Without,
do what we intended to do
Yeah.
and inform them to the extent that we ought to have informed them
The
earlier.
reading program can continue. There's not a thing that will disrupt that entire program. There's not a thing that will disrupt this information that SFA is receiving. The only thing that will be stopped is SFA Foundation from tagging in and collecting this data. But our buildings will all have that data. They can still do all of their end of the year.
one of the things I totally I really understand in terms of what the issue is, and we'll follow up, with that, with the urgency, and I would only encourage board members to always contact me if there's anything, because I can immediately start following up on something. But I'm recognizing the importance, based on what we just said, because I'm aware of some things too that have been brought to my attention in surveys specifically. People have said, I don't want my kids surveyed on something, and I understand why, because they did not want that type of engagement with their kids. So there could be a variety of reasons.
Was there any question, when this was brought to the board, was there any question when they read this contract about that language in there?
I think the only thing they would, one of the things that, quite often is asked is, has our attorney looked at things, but not necessarily, does all this match our procedures? I think, unfortunately, maybe, that we assume,
Yeah.
that some things are in place, and that's where, again, I think we all need to be comfortable that the right hand knows what the left hand is doing in terms of signing the document. What does that document mean? Is that in fact what you're doing, or you just think it's happening?
Is there a clear statement in the contract that Success for All doesn't share any of this information?
Yeah, it absolutely says that they're going to keep it in strict confidence.
Okay.
Yeah, and also that.
At least there's that
They
protection.
want you.
Did you see this contract, Carrie, when you were on
I'm
board?
going to try to get everybody.
You saw?
I didn't.
I did not.
And Keith, I don't recall, that was on the, part of the board packet or not. I only know that, we got attorneys involved in what we were sharing with.
No, I wouldn't have known that either back then. It's on page
I don't
4,
recall.
Carrie, 4 and 5.
And I can't tell you because I wasn't here.
And I pulled the contract just because I, assumed that we were talking about possibly SFA.
Sure,
But again, I didn't, so it was, I didn't know for sure, I knew what possibly might be broken that needed to be fixed.
And I think it's critical. Now that we're aware, we look at all the other places where we share data to make sure that we're not making the same mistake
No,
in other spots and
right,
get everything.
if they just wanted scores and kid X, Y, Z,
Right, unidentified stores.
Yeah, right.
but now we've entered into the realm of identification, name and that whole bit, especially with that number on there.
Yeah, so it's more on our end, have we done proper notification?
It's totally on our
I'm
end.
seeing it.
It's totally on it.
And I mean, it was, Keith, I would have to be honest, it was the same thing when I heard about the survey, because our schools are getting into agreements and doing surveys sometimes, and I'm thinking, where's our safety net?
Oh,
So I had other concern, not knowing what our system was and to the extent that if everything was in
sure,
place.
sure.
You mean for surveying students?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you for bringing it forward, because we find it, we can fix it.
We can fix it.
Right.
Yeah, sort of.
Anything else? Sort of. Thanks for the vote of confidence. There you go. Okay, anything further?
Is that it?
Regarding this,
Yeah,
I have nothing further regarding this.
okay. Then I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned.